If you've ever been to a fandom convention or a writers' conference, you know how valuable and entertaining panels can be. But if you've never been to a multiverse convention panel, you have no idea how amazing they truly are. Multiverse has a knack for making virtually any panel into a free-flowing conversation, one that doesn't always stay in the room or stay within its hour. Attendees and panelists alike often continue the conversation well after the panel is officially over. And this year, as Go Indie Now turns the spotlight on the Multiverse Convention with our ongoing series, in addition to our interview sessions, we've also put together a few panels modeling what a multiverse panel is like, in hopes that you get the feeling for what those who have experienced it already know. Once you've been to a multiverse panel, you want them all to be that way.
Hello, and welcome to Inspired by the Screen, brought to you by Multiverse and Go Indie Now. That intro was awesome, Joe. Joe put that together. That was awesome. Very true. Multiverse panels are unlike any other. And I do a lot of cons, so I should know. But before we get started, I want to let everyone know that because this is a sanctioned multiverse event, we want to remind everyone here on the panel and in the chat that there is a multiverse code of conduct to follow. I don't think that'll be a problem, but if you're leaving comments, be respectful, please. Thank you. With that said, I want to say hello to all of our wonderful panelists. We're all creators here. So first, let's have everyone introduce yourself and let us know what you create. I believe we're all writers. We'll start with Tony.
I am Tony Serecchia. I've created the Lady Sherlock Mysteries audio drama, the Scarlet Hood audio drama, and the Harry Strange radio drama are my main things. And then I also have some short stories out in George Gothic and Legends of New Pulp.
Awesome. And Tiffany?
Of course, my dog's going to bark the minute I start talking. I'm Tiffany Vega. Hold on one second.
All right. Well, let's come back to Tiffany in just a minute and let her calm down the dogs. We love dogs and go on to Kevin.
Okay. I'm Kevin Petway. I write humorous fantasy. I wrote the Misplaced Mercenaries series, and then that was turned into an expanded universe. So we've got me and 5 other authors writing in what we're calling the Misplaced Adventures books. Short stories and anthologies and stuff like that. Oh, and I did a web comic for about 5 years before I got started with writing books that I just dearly loved. And although at the end of it, I decided that I liked writing better than drawing, so that's why I ended up moving on to novels.
Awesome.
And so far, my dogs are being quiet, although I'm really really hoping they stay that way.
Mine's hanging out at the door, and I'm like, he wants to be on whatever side he's not. So we might have an issue here too. Are you back, Tiffany?
I am. Okay, I'm so sorry for that. I'm Tiffany Vega. I'm one half owner of Outsider Publishing Company, and I'm a multi-genre author, so I can write anything from psychological thrillers, horror, to fantasy.
Awesome. And of course, Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Compton. I write crime thrillers. I wrote a Duality of Truth trilogy, and I also have made several independent films and worked in independent film and Hollywood for about 18 months, and then came to my senses, and now I'm back doing what I do here at Go Indie Now. So
awesome. Now at Multiverse, there's different moderators for different panels, and everybody has their own style. Mine tends to be a little bit more conversational, which doesn't really translate over to the screen as well. So I do kind of have to call on people. But if you have something that you want to say after your turn or out of turn, just give me a little hand signal or something, and we can work it all in, okay? Try to keep it as organic as possible. But we are obviously all creators here. I'm curious about your relationship with Multiverse. When did you first attend? Did you come as an attendee first, or a creator, or just tell us your story about Multiverse, and we'll go to Tiffany while the dog is corralled. You're muted. Tiffany, you're
Can't
muted.
hear you, Tiff.
You're still muted.
Yep, still muted.
Oh, I think it's your internet being wonky.
Yeah, it's going in and out.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah, for some reason it kept muting me, but not last year, but the year before was my first time ever going to Multiverse. I belong with the TWT group, and that's how I found out about it. And that was my first and only year. So this will be my second year going.
And for those unfamiliar, the TWT group is the Writers Troupe. It's a wonderfully supportive organization that was started in part by Vanessa, who is has been very integral to Multiverse throughout the years. And it's a great community. So, Kevin, you were just telling us beforehand about coming to Multiverse and
Yeah.
thoughts.
So do you know Kelly and Kevin Colby? Yeah. So there, Kelly is, I think she's one of the track leaders, and her husband Kevin was doing a bunch of the AV stuff. And Kelly they are the owners of Curse Dragon Ship Publishing, which is my publishing company. And so when one of our authors moved into the area, very, very close. I mean, she's like 10 minutes away from the hotel. And Kelly decided to make Multiverse one of our official publishing events. I was thrilled to go because I could crash on Jen's couch and didn't have to pay for a hotel room. But once I did, I was absolutely delighted at what I found. It is such a special thing to find a place that is so open and welcoming, and just walking in the door is like getting a great big hug. And I felt like that the whole weekend I was there. And so I was thrilled with it and cannot wait to go back.
Fantastic. Tony? I'm just going to keep Joe to last every time.
Okay, sure. So I think it was, I'm trying to remember, the first year I went was pre-COVID. And it was after, so this would have been the con I went to after Dragon Con. So it was yeah, kind of like Kevin said, it was just kind of a big hug, a big like, oh, this is a cool con because I can talk to everyone over the course of the weekend. And like, but I think by the end of that first weekend that I went, I pretty much knew everybody, you know, on the writer track, on the fantasy track. And it was just such a nice, chill convention where you get to meet a lot of people and talk to a lot of people, which at a giant con like Dragon Con, you don't get to do that. I mean, Dragon Con is wonderful for what it is, but this was just the chill con with your buddies, right? Later afterwards. And I enjoy going every year.
Awesome. Joe?
I got introduced to Multiverse during the virtual year when everything was a virtual, and Vanessa and I were becoming fast friends. And she goes, "Well, I'm doing this thing this weekend. You should drop in." And she gave me the Zoom link to the women's rule panel. And so here I am, the one guy in the women's rule panel, experiencing that. And from there, I was hooked. I said, I gotta be at the next live one. And so I went, and then I interviewed Jesse and Allison for my channel right before the con started, and I've never looked back since.
Awesome. Multiverse is so unique, and especially in their mission statement to bring diversity to the con scene. I do a lot of cons, and it is by far the most diverse, and it is wonderful to see these different perspectives. But now let's jump into the film. That's why we're here, to talk about the screen, the movies and TV shows that built us as creators. Okay, well, maybe not everybody is as wildly ADHD as I am, but let's hear about your viewing habits. What are you watching at the end of the day? And I don't want to leave Joe to last. We'll go Joe first this time. What are you watching?
Right now?
In general, like what's your go-to genres and
Oh, so I mean, for me, I'm a lot different probably than anybody here because of what I do at GoIndie now. I cover independent films, so I'm watching tons of independent films. I do a review show on this channel for independent films. I go to film festivals. I went to Slam Dance and I watched 142 films there. I made a goal this year to try to watch every single film, which was just crazy and stupid. But I watched a majority of them this year. A lot of them are short, so it's a lot easier than it sounds. But I watch a lot of, like, right now. I can't talk enough about Sinners right now. That's the one. That's the go-to right now. But
I can't see it yet because I have children.
Oh yeah, but I've seen it twice now. Yeah, so that's right now. I'm just watching a lot of independent film, and you can go to my channel and see the movies that I've recommended. There's one that I really, really love that we haven't aired the episode yet, so I don't want to talk about it. But there is a movie, an upcoming episode of our show's called Saving a Seat, and myself and Brian Tan do the movie reviews, and we're doing a review for what I believe is, other than Sinners, because Sinners is not an independent film, so it doesn't really fall into this category. But other than that movie, this is the best movie I've seen all year. So I can't wait for people to discover that. But
okay, Tiffany. It's going in and out again. It keeps muting you again. Okay. We're going to come back to you. We're going to come back to you again. I don't know. You got it?
Is it working now? Okay. So I am a huge Kevin Smith fan. So anything by Kevin Smith, I watched all day, any day of the night. So like, I like to go to bed watching Dogma or Clerks.
We will get along great. All right, Kevin, what are you watching?
Yeah, nothing very highbrow. Let's see.
Unlike me and Tiffany over here.
Well, my wife and I, we trade off, who gets to pick the TV on any particular night. But most recently, we've been watching Dairy Girls, which is, I'm so happy. I think years and years ago, I watched it. I watched the first episode. I'm like, I think I would like this, but I can't understand what anybody's saying. And then at some point, I'm like, no, wait, I have closed captioning. What am I worried about? And that really opened it up to me. And it's just freaking hysterical. I absolutely love that show. We also just started watching Running Point on Netflix, which is a very, very funny comedy about a woman who takes over a professional basketball team. Let's see. We've really been enjoying Yellow Jackets. We had a park the brain moment and went back and watched the first season of Tiger King for whatever reason, but you know what? It was very entertaining. What's the other thing? Murderbot, which, it's funny because I read the first book of Murderbot, and this will kind of ease us in towards our topic, but I didn't really connect with the book very well. It just didn't grab me, but I watched the first episode of the TV show and I was like, okay, I'm in, I'm all in. This is fantastic. So, which was odd for me. That's not my normal experience. Things, it's usually the other way around. But that loved it.
All right, Tony, what are you watching?
Oh, what am I watching? So I watch anything with Mike Flanagan's name on it. I am. So I guess the thing that I must watch every week before somebody spoils it for me is Doctor Who. And I've been a Doctor Who fan forever. So that's probably I must watch. My wife and I, well, I guess it's been a couple months now. We finished Yellowstone, which was just, I thought, an incredibly well written, tight program. And so I'm a sucker for dialogue, so I'll watch Quentin Tarantino movies or Aaron Sorkin over and over again.
Okay. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this panel is because I keep showing my children things from my childhood and going, oh, that's why I'm this way. I mean, I don't think that without Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Princess Bride, Beetlejuice, I don't think that my sense of humor would have come through my work the way that it does. It's just like, these are things that are just, they're part of my DNA almost, they're who I am. Not who I am exclusively. There's other parts, but are there any properties from your childhood that you can see in your work, like that you're aware of? I
wouldn't say in my work, but I would not be a filmmaker if it was not for Indiana Jones. That movie changed. Raiders of the Lost Ark changed everything for me. I was about 9 or 10 years old. It's the first time we had this ritual on Sundays where we would go to bookstores. We'd go to brunch and then go to bookstores. Me, my parents, and my brother. And it was the first time we had gone to a movie instead of a bookstore because the bookstore near us closed. Long story short. But we were standing in line, and I just remember looking around at all these people standing in line for a movie and go, people are actually standing in line to see a movie? This is crazy. And then we sat down. I could smell the popcorn. I could see the screen, and I go, this is what I was born to do. I just felt it in my bones, right? And then seeing the movie and going, holy crap, this is awesome. So that for me, that changed everything for me. So
fantastic.
I see. Oh, I'm sorry. Good.
No, go ahead.
This is going back a ways, but Bullwinkle the cartoon played a huge part of my humor that to this day I can point and say, watch me pull a rat out of a hat, or some kind of Bullwinkle joke. Movie-wise, though, it was probably the original Omen that just blew. I was probably too young to see it, when I saw it, but I did, and it blew me away that the music in a movie could be as scary as it was, because the music in the Omen is its own character practically, the original one, and I think just blew, and that probably was one of the movies that just made me fall in love with film, was the Omen.
Yeah. Tiffany.
I think for me, like Dark Crystal, Legends, Labyrinth. I'm a dark fantasy girl, and Dark Crystal, I think, scarred me as a child because I watched it way too young, and it stuck with me all 46 years as being one of the best movies I've ever seen, but one that made me cry every time I watch it.
The Goblin King is judging you.
I've always liked fantasy, but I like the tone of the old Westerns. And I didn't realize it until I was watching the movie with my wife that my first book, the first book in my series, it wasn't like a retelling, but there was so much borrowed from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And I had watched that movie when I was shorter. And so when I watched it again, and I'm like, okay, so there's the relationship between my two main characters. There's my, hole in the wall gang analog. Here's all the soldiers coming in at the end. The ending's a little different, but it just blew me away because I didn't remember it, and I'm like, yeah, obviously that made a huge impression on me.
It's so funny you say that, Kevin. In my second book, I was waiting so long to use this phrase from Butch Cassidy, and in my second book, it just felt so right that because a bomb goes off, and one of the detectives, she falls down, she hits the ground, and somebody goes, "Are you okay?" She goes, "Well, it's the fall that'll kill you." And then and so I was waiting to use that line from that movie forever.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's an amazing movie. Holds up very well.
Right. So I'm fairly certain Double Crossing the Bridge, my debut novel, would not exist if I hadn't gone on a binge of Leverage right before writing it. I was on a car trip with my husband and we were just like throwing stupid ideas out, and we were like, what would happen if a bunch of trolls pulled a Leverage style heist? And so like I think a lot of like the genre blurring comes from the screen for me. Are there any specific ways that you have seen, or any of your works that you've written or filmed that have really been directly inspired by something that you've watched? I'm seeing nodding. Tiffany, you're unmuted. I'm going to go with you.
I can go with that. Okay, so my third book that I wrote, it's the first book in a series, The Elements, Destiny and Desire. It is very much the serious version of Dogma, where they're tasked to save heaven from demons, and because I cannot say enough, I love Kevin Smith so much. So it is definitely inspired by Kevin Smith.
I can totally see that. I've read the book. I can totally see that.
Awesome. Anyone else got a good answer loaded?
So I've always liked the hero. Like Have Gun Will Travel was one of my favorite TV shows growing up, and then I learned there was a radio show before that, and I've also kind of always been into Mickey Spillane and Dashiell Hammett and those guys. So I think it's clear. I mean, if you listen to Harry Strange for a minute and a half, you can kind of trace that lineage back to the lone hero, the cowboy. He's just wearing a raincoat and a top hat and fighting demons instead of bad guys.
Nice. You got any, Kevin?
I don't think that there's anything that I like, directly saw this thing and said, okay, I've got to make this other thing from this. But I have definitely gotten a lot more deliberate about what pieces of things I reach out and grab and borrow from, which the first time that I tried that, just like, reskinning a character for a short story, and it worked and it was wonderful and everybody thought I was brilliant, which of course I wasn't. I was really just, sort of stealing, but you hear a snippet of dialogue and it suggests an entire character to you, and one thing that's really nice about, in particular, TV shows is that you can get to know a character really, really well. And so you've got a very complete image of a person in your head. And then once if you want to start with that as your template and then just sort of, fiddle with it until it fits your story, that particular format is really useful for that.
I would not call it stealing. I mean, everybody that's creating anything is recombining ideas that flash across our little synapses. Sometimes we're more aware of it than other times, but
of course.
Got something, Joe?
Yeah, my first film was called Carl's Liquor, and it was Clerks meets Empire Records. So, I mean, I'll just admit it. I blatantly.
Wait, hang on. What was the name of that again?
My film's called Carl. You won't find it. I've buried them deep into the annals of hell. But you'll find the trailer. The trailer is online. You can find it if you look up Carl's Liquor or Joe Compton. You'll find the trailer. But I can't get rid of that thing. YouTube won't let me let me kill it. But otherwise, yeah, the movie is a blatant ripoff of Clerks, and then the actual plot is a blatant ripoff of Empire Records. So
that sounds fantastic. So after I have a short story called The Legendary Lord Redfield the Reaper. And I thought it was just this ridiculous thing that came into my mind. And it's about, it's this ne'er-do-well knight. He's just a goof. And like the opening scene, he kicks a sword and it goes up in the air and falls down and slices his leg. And it's just like, everything he does is he's just bumbling, But after the fact, my husband read it and he was like, this is so Monty Python. And it pissed me off, honestly, because I have a very interesting relationship with Monty Python. I lived in England for a long time and don't think that it took me a long time to come around on some types of British humor after living in England and getting made fun of for 3 years as a child. And then I moved to a place where all my friends were nerds quoting Monty Python at each other all the time. So I kind of hate Monty Python, but he's right. There's so much holy grail in that story. Like, I mean, he's wrestling dead bodies out of a water. Anyway, have you had any situations where you've written something and you're not aware of the influences that you've put in, but then after the fact, you've either seen it yourself or somebody's pointed it out to you something that's coming from the screen, of course? No.
Other than the one I already admitted to.
Yeah. The first episode of Lady Sherlock actually ends with it was like not mind altering. It was a plant that they used and it drove a guy crazy. And then I guess about a couple months later, I rewatched the first Sherlock with Robert Downey Jr. and I was like, oh my God, it's the same thing. So I have since pulled that story back and am rewriting it, retconning it into the series the way it should be. So
I had an editor actually point out to me in my second book, I wrote the line "Let her go, you bitch," which is the reference to Aliens.
Right.
And I had no idea it was subconscious, and like literally, and my editor wrote in the little Google comment on the site, "Have you watched Aliens recently?" And I go, "No, but I pretty much know that movie by heart because it's one of my all-time favorites." And she goes, "Yeah, I could tell." And she goes, "Let's change this line up a little bit." And so we ended up actually changing the line. But yeah, that was my editor pointing that out to me. So,
and nobody's ever said anything to me about it being like something else without me already knowing that's what it's like.
Well, have you seen anything after the fact that you didn't know that you were putting in there?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
So there's time. While we're on the getting frustrated about things being in there, has it ever gone the other way for you where you're watching something and you either have written something very similar or you wrote something similar and you're like, wait, they stole my idea, but they couldn't possibly have stolen your idea because either it's not published yet or you're like me and you're too small for anybody in Hollywood to have any clue you exist. Have you ever had that happen?
So when I was a kid, I loved comic books. And originally when I started writing, I wanted to write comic books. So me and my brother would sit there and we would come up with storylines and story arcs about comic books. And it would never fail. Like a few months later, what we thought of was being put out. And I used to tease him and say that Marvel had his brain chipped. So when we came up with ideas, they were stealing it from, 15-year-old kids, and, but it never failed. We came up with an arc and it was like 6 months later, it'd be out.
Yep, they were. They're spying on you.
Yeah. Yesterday, we're watching TV. We're watching TV, and I'm watching a scene play out that I had written earlier that day. And I'm not going to say what show it is because they didn't do as good a job as I did. And
you're keeping it, right? You're keeping it.
That's right. I'm keeping it. No, it's just it's embarrassing because it's a really stupid show, and you know, but yeah, it happened, and I had to stop it and explain, you know, tell my wife and say, okay, I just wrote this scene, and here's how it ended for me. Let's see how it ends for them. And you know, then of course, like I said, it was a stupid show, so it ended stupid, and I'm changing mine. But that's it.
Hey, Tony, you got any?
Yeah, there was, and I remember being it's been a couple of years, and I remember being super frustrated about it and complaining to one of my writer friends, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. I just know, I mean, I guess I blanked it. I was so traumatized by it. And I know I was pretty, it was a screenplay, and I know it was pretty complete. And then something came out very similar, but I cannot remember what the topic was. I'm sure I'll remember it at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'll text you all.
Yeah. Just put it in the chat or
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Joe?
Well, it hasn't happened to me personally, but I worked with a guy who wrote a joke that turned up in a Robert Rodriguez movie later on, and like we literally filmed him saying the joke, so I know it's the exact same joke, and you know, I guess I could say it now because the person that I'm talking about has passed away, but. The joke was the joke that Tarantino tells in Desperado to Cheech Marin about pissing all over the bar and, you know, not getting it in the cup. But that joke was actually in a script that I saw 3 years prior to Desperado coming out, and we didn't get picked up, so we never aired that episode, so it never aired prior. And it was obviously it was for television, so it was condensed into a nicer way to say those things, but that happened, and I was like, "Holy crap! That's the joke." I remember that joke explicitly. So yeah, that happened.
Was he bent about it, or was he flattered?
I never asked him. I didn't. I worked with him only during that time, and I had never seen him since after that. So I never asked him. But I can guarantee you, knowing him, he was probably throwing something at the TV or at the screen when he saw it. Yeah. And I won't tell you who he is because it's not worth it. But
I had that happen when I was watching Carnival Row. I was like 3/4 of the way through having written Fairy Godmurder, and I was like, I saw the premise, and I was like, no. But thankfully, there was a big divergence. So what they did and what I did. But I want to rewind a little bit and go back to the concept of genres. And I want to know if are you creating in the genres that you're watching? And if so, how are you seeing the things that you're watching in your work? And then I'm going to inverse that afterwards. So if you don't have an answer for that one, you can jump ahead.
I missed the last part of what you said.
That's probably because I don't know what I just said. I think it was word salad. I do have notes. I just didn't stick to them.
So I think for me, that I do watch a lot of fantasy, and I do write a lot of fantasy. But I also I watch a lot of comedy, and I don't write anything like that is like very funny at all. All mine is dark. So I think because I write so much dark, I watch a lot of more uplifting, funny things.
Okay. And Kevin, are you creating in the same genre that you're watching, basically?
Okay. Well, so I guess I kind of watch things all over the place. I do watch fantasy, and I do watch comedy. But I also watch, you know, like I said, Yellow Jackets, which is neither one of those. Maybe a little fantasy-ish, but
Yeah. Tad bit.
but I don't know. I for me, the most fun thing about writing is those characters, is getting into their dialogue, getting into their heads, getting into their histories. And that's kind of the same across all genres. So, there's really nothing that you can watch that you can't learn anything from, or just have a good time with. So I'm going to say provisionally yes, but it's not like I'm only watching that.
Tony?
So the two major projects I'm working on right now. One is a kind of a zombie apocalypse sci-fi thriller, and the other is a noir set in the Middle Ages. So yes, I mean I do watch horror. I've pretty well given up on all zombie stories, which is probably why I've started writing my own. And but I don't I don't think that what I watch ties in directly with what I'm writing at the moment. So I guess the answer is no. Sorry.
Okay. Joe?
I wish
You watch everything.
if I could write like Mammoth, that would be amazing. But that's or even De Palma or anything like that. Crime thrillers and things like that. I read a lot of them. I watch a lot of them in the genre, but I'm really honestly my dialogue and my sense of humor and even in my horror is more based on authors than on film folks and TV folks. But like for me, Kevin Smith is like dialogue king for me too. So I do emulate a lot of that if I'm trying to be funny. But that's not a genre, but that's not the question. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, for me, I'm all over it, and because I watch so many different genres and so many different movies, I can't help but be influenced by a certain so I'm a film nerd, and let me tell you, if you have a really cool shot in your movie, I'm going to remember that more than I'm going to remember what genre it was. So.
Yeah, when I'm writing, I don't read anything close to what I'm writing because I don't want to be influenced by somebody else's work in that way. But I will listen to music that has the vibe, and I will watch movies and shows that have but it's all about vibe for me. And it's kind of interesting to hear you guys talk because I noticed Kevin is very character driven, very like all about the characters and those traits. And then Joe, you were just talking about something that was a completely different angle, and I had my finger on it, and as soon as I started that sentence, I forgot what it was. But it's just interesting to see all the different elements that people are allowing to kind of filter in through them into their work. I watch a lot of speculative and across the board. I don't write a ton of sci-fi, especially not hard sci-fi, but I'll watch it. I just don't. That's just not. I don't prefer to write it. Are there genres that you really like on the screen? I don't even really read it either. It's just not a. Kevin Smith is absolutely. Sorry, I just saw from Sean. Yes, he is a genre in himself. But are there some that you avoid creating in that you really enjoy on the screen? It's just not something that you have any interest in putting down yourself or adding to.
Musicals.
Yeah.
Hard to write a musical book.
Gallivant is the best show in the entire world, by the way. And I can't do a panel on shows without. I'm sorry, you said musicals, and that is my favorite. That is my favorite.
No, I love watching musicals. And I just, if you write a song in a book, people are just going to skip it.
Unless you're Mickey Mason. He does a lot of filking and nerdy songs. I'm sorry, I'll shut up. I'll let you guys talk. Sorry.
I think I'm like you. I love sci-fi, but I don't write sci-fi. I don't know if it's the writing style or just imagining being out in space, but I don't do very good sci-fi.
Yeah, the closest I get is Lovecraftian. I'll do a little bit of Lovecraftian type. Like I've got a Kraken story that's a little, but no hard sci-fi. But I'll watch it. It's interesting. I have a bio degree. Tony, do you have anything that you really enjoy watching on the screen? But
probably, I mean, I don't think I've ever written a story in space where that was like, there's people who've been in space, but yeah, so probably I would say the hard sci-fi. I enjoy watching it, but probably not writing it because it's just not what I would write. I mean, I also enjoy like straight dramas, like Yellowstone was probably one of the best shows, in Breaking Bad and Sopranos, but I just don't. That's just not my filter to write a straight drama show like that.
yeah, same. I like all those too. And The Residents. Have you seen The Residents? Because it's
No.
drama comedy-ish.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Knives Out style. Like I'd love to write something like that, but it's just going to be magic. Like
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say it's not right. It's just there's going to be a magic reason. There's going to be a demon around the corner and somebody poking, making it all happen.
Yeah.
I've written fantasy, horror, sci-fi, contemporary, and in all of those genres, but I can't seem to not make it funny. And so no matter what the genre is, it's always that genre / humor. And so if it was just like a straight up horror movie, no, I can't do that. Apparently just doesn't work.
The best horror movies are funny. Shaun of the Dead.
That's kind of my opinion. Yeah.
I know.
At least have funny elements, right? Like horror and comedy is so close when you write it that I think that you need to have the horror. It doesn't have to be like Shaun of the Dead, but it has to have that element of absurdity to it.
I think a good crime thriller does that as well. I think there's some snappy ones that crime thrillers end up having like funny lines too as well. Like,
right. Like I always have a misplaced New Jersey in one of my stories. So it's
as you do.
As you do, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never write anything in the Star Wars universe simply because I like my life and I don't want to be bothered by bad humans. So I will never write anything in Star Wars. So, that's a really good
Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I now, after what Kevin said, I now want to do like an anthology of all short stories that are musicals.
That would be awesome.
Like, I mean, I can't talk about that yet. But just specifically like the Once More with Feeling from Buffy, as an anthology of stories, that'd be amazing. So
the Lucifer episode where they break into song and they can't stop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or Xena. There was a musical Xena episode before any of the others.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When I wrote Double Crossing the Bridge, I hid a ton of Easter eggs that were all references to classic caper and heist movies. There were 20-something of them, and then I lost my master list. And so I had this genius idea. I was going to ask people, I was going to make a contest out of it. Whoever came up with the most would get like a free copy of the book or something stupid because I had nothing else to give at that point. I only had the one book out. But also, since I only had the one book out, nobody cared enough to go through and find all of my Easter eggs. But really, it was just a ploy to get them to tell me where they were. There was a good musical episode in Star Trek too. I saw from Jesse. I'm not used to seeing the comments pop up. I'm like, oh, good point.
Sorry, that's probably something we should have talked about beforehand. I apologize.
I'm distracted very easily. But do you have any intentional Easter eggs in any of your writing? Like we talked about some of the ones that crept in there accidentally, and then we had to like alter course. But like, have you put any on purpose in there?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I know that my brother, who's my partner and my publishing company, all his writing has Easter eggs to pop culture, and I don't think I've ever intentionally, at least, put an Easter egg in.
It is dangerous because it does date the work as well. I do it anyway,
Mhm.
but
I was gonna say I thought there was a couple in elements, to be honest with you, but so.
It was not intentional.
No, nobody
I
else.
will. I mean, I'll put an Easter egg in if it's. Yeah, I mean, I will, but I also have like other characters call it out. Like, did you just make a Star Wars reference? You know, while the world is burning and you're doing. So I'll do that, but I also there's some Easter eggs I think in everything, but they're generally either very old Easter eggs or like classic literature Easter eggs. Nothing too current is in there.
So you
I do-
avoid that whole problem of aging the work with it.
I try. Yeah, I try. I mean, we age it because of like some of the cell phone references and things, but yeah, but generally, like if I'm going to put Easter eggs, it's going to be or like classic Bugs Bunny cartoons. You can generally find some of that stuff in there. Chinatown. I've used Chinatown also as references.
Well, other than the one I already mentioned, the Bush and the Sundance one, I don't do a lot of Easter eggs for movies or pop culture. I do a lot of Easter eggs for local things that where I grew up, because I'd like to get the people who know me involved in the books a little bit. So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of musical referencing too, like you know, but it's very overt. It's not something that's like, you know, hidden. Like the character in my second book sings Barracuda, and that's and something that she does. Every time it's like her. It's like when she wins, that's what she sings, kind of thing. But yeah, I actually in the third book, and again, an editor made me change it. In the third book, I made a character named Leo McGarry, and they said, "Well, we're probably going to go up against some copyright issues with that, probably because it's actually written down in a script somewhere." So, for people who don't know, he was the chief of staff, the first chief of staff in The West Wing. And that was his actual name. I spelled it differently, but that doesn't matter apparently. So I changed. I had to change that person's name, but. That was going to be my like really, really big Easter egg. But.
Yeah, I think for me it sort of depends on the tone of the work. For the first series, which you know, the first fantasy series, I was really, really careful not to do any of that because I didn't want to tie my fantasy world to the real world. Like nobody said okay because you know that's a political campaign thing and you know that sort of thing. But then I wrote a sci-fi which was, you know, set in our future, and it's full of them. And then when I wrote my series in the expanded universe thing, I stuffed it full of Easter eggs for everybody else's books, which I know is not what we're talking about. But yeah, so it just kind of depends on the work. You know, it's appropriate for some and not for others, and you know, it's a tool just like anything else. It's fun. People read those and they're like, oh, I'm so smart because I picked that up, and you want your reader to feel smart. So it's great.
Okay, I lost track. Did everybody answer that one? Cool. So earlier I talked about how lately I've been feeling I got Knives Out and The Residents kind of kicking around in my head a little bit, and I'm not sure where that's going to come out. I'm sure it will in my writing somewhere. When was the last time you were really inspired by something you saw on the screen and it just made you want to go make something?
It just happened for me. I mean, Sinners. There's 2 shots in Sinners that I'm going. If I don't steal them, it's going to be stolen by 1,000 people. there's two movements and camera movements and two color things that they do that are so unique and so amazing. I was talking to a DP friend of mine about it just 2 days ago, talking about we need to write something that has that movement in it so we can try and do it, because it was amazing. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen the movie. So, but I do reference it in a review I made. But those are when like I said, I'm a film geek. So if I see a shot, I'm going to try and deconstruct it and figure out how they did it and try to do something very similar so that I can emulate that. And as soon as I see it, I want to make it. I'm literally that's like I said, I talked to a DP friend of mine and we were like already thinking, let's make something.
Can I ask you a question? Joe, when you see those scenes that you really enjoy and want to dissect and use, do you ever catch yourself trying to frame a scene in a book in a similar way?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. But it's a lot harder because it's harder to explain that. Yeah. But yeah, there's like when a camera does like a pan shot or like a above the head shot, there's something I try to do like a God thing in the book and mention that. But that's a lot harder to do. But yeah, I've tried it.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else got any?
The Magnus Archives. I don't know if anybody listened to that. It's an audio drama out of England. I think it's like 600 episodes. It's complete now. But Jonathan Sims, the guy who wrote it, set up all these stories in the beginning it was an anthology in the beginning that you didn't know what was happening. And then by the end, right, so 5 years later, he tied up every one of those stories that he had opened in the beginning that seemed just like a random story, and everything like the episode numbers and all that, everything tied together at the end. And I thought that was just, I mean, that's 18 whiteboards to make that happen. And he just did it.
5,000 index cards later.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It was just brilliant the way he tied all those together.
Awesome.
I think every scary movie that I've ever watched has inspired me because I am like, I love writing scary stuff. And I think it was not last year, but the year before, I watched, I think it was called Silent Night, which inspired our short story collection of Christmas Chaos that we put out last year. And but anything scary, it always inspires me, whether it's, from like, the scary aspect, or what if that was more fantasy than horror? And anything scary is. Freddy Krueger is like my favorite thing in the world. He's always inspiring me to write a story.
Awesome. So
I think for me, it's just characters. Again, it's just if I see a character that I want to pinch, then it's not even really about the whole story. It's just if I really connect with that character, then that's what I'll take.
I love how Kevin's just kidnapping characters. That's the new plot, by the way. There's an author who is going and he's kidnapping characters from the screen and locking them in a book. And then I just wanted to kind of give an opportunity for you all to mention if there's any other examples from your work or even from someone else's where you have been able to very clearly see the screen influence. Just in case, when I was writing up these questions, I was like, this is very directed, and I want to just make sure you have a chance to talk about all the different ways that you think that you have incorporated the things that are coming in and how they're coming out, if that makes any sense at all. I
have a new series, I already have the one book out, but book 2 is coming out June 13th. That is based off an anime, 7 Deadly Sins. And that has definitely was heavily inspired by that series. And but again, a part of it like has the dark crystal kind of like, you know, grim, dying, you know, stuff in it. So
I just was watching. This is not something I watched. I'm gonna go back and watch it now, but because I haven't seen it in 20 years. But I was watching a film theory show that I watch constantly on YouTube, and they were talking about recently The Thing, and how John Carpenter just revealed who the real Thing was, and said that there's a very specific clue in The Thing. If you watch it, it's very obvious who the actual Thing is, right? And so I was like, so that made me intrigued to kind of go, am I smart enough to do something like that? Can I pull something like that off? So I've been thinking about that for the last couple of days. I'm actually in process of writing a horror novel right now, and I'm thinking about, can I incorporate that into what I just heard about, and the interesting way in which they heard in the interesting way in which I love foreshadowing. I love little things like that where it does that and then it turns it on its head. I'm hardly ever fooled by that, but because I just know how writing goes, and how story is, but I enjoy it nonetheless. And so I always look, again, it's something I deconstruct and try to figure out. I'm sorry, I'm just so strange. I apologize, but you know, that's how my brain thinks. If you ever wanted a scary insight into my brain, that's how I think when I'm watching something or reading something.
Because you're among a whole lot of normal people here.
Are you going to tell us the clue?
I don't know what it is yet. I haven't watched it.
Oh,
He doesn't say it. He just says that there is a clue it's at the station when they're all in the station together, and he says there's a line specifically that said that will tell you who the Thing is.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back and watch it and try to figure it out. But
I think we all are now. So.
Yeah. But that was just a revelation that he just recently made. I don't know why John Carpenter decided to sit on that for 25 years, but whatever.
All right, Kevin, you got any other ones?
Well, so sometimes when I'm writing, I make a deliberate effort not to emulate like visual tropes from movies that are, you know, used for storytelling conveniences, you know, because I'm trying not to shortchange my reader. But that said, there are other times I got some advice a long time ago to write scenes of wonder in your book. And when I do that, I very, very deliberately visualize them as if I were watching, you know, the slow pan over the top of the mountain, and you see the waterfall in the distance, and you know, use that visual framing to create that scene of wonder and then describe it as best I can. So I use it. I try to use it where it's appropriate. But yeah, definitely. I absolutely, you know, try and emulate those techniques where I think they play well.
Okay. Tony, you got any other places where you?
I would agree that you see things and then you write things, and then I think it's not until the rewrite that you go, oh, I know where that came from, you know, and then you either tease it out or you change it, you know. I think that's kind of right, because we're the you know, we grew up with VHS and Netflix, and we grew very visual, right? It wasn't just books for us. So I think we can't help but move those things into our projects.
Yeah, I definitely see when I'm writing, I see the scenes play out like a movie in my head when I'm writing.
Right.
And I think a lot of people do.
And I think a lot of us block more than like outline. Like, I mean, we probably, you have an outline. I don't want to get into the whole pantser thing or not, but when you are writing that scene, I tend to block it more than have it outlined. right? Like I know this guy's by this door, this guy's over here.
Yeah, I do the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a couple of questions, Sarah, if you want to.
Oh, we do? I don't see the questions.
Well, one of them is being a smartass, Mr.
Oh.
Sean Hellman.
I needed to click on the other button, apparently.
He says if a cold shift leaves Proxima to Ascent, he's just being it. He's just
Yep,
being
yep, yep. Well, that was the Monty Python earlier.
Right.
And then this is an actual question from Jesse.
Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, video gaming. Oh. Is there anything from video gaming that's influenced you the way TV or movies have?
Yeah,
I love.
Silent Hill is one of those that
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Silent Hill.
Silent Hill is great. For me, it was Zero Dawn. That was amazing, and I just the way they handled the storytelling in that was so beautiful, and you know, I don't know if I've successfully emulated it, but I want to.
Tiffany, you were going to say something?
I'm a huge video gamer, but my absolute favorite video game of all time is Final Fantasy. And I think that has inspired me with my fantasy work a lot. Just the adventure that, you know, going out and traveling. But I mean, I was so inspired by Final Fantasy gaming that I'm in the process of doing my own adventure game currently. And but yeah, Final Fantasy, Aliens, the original game, all the old, you know, Super Mario adventures and stuff like that has been like, yeah, definitely inspired.
So we do not have time for me to go on my Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, those are basically the imagination of Miyamoto. Like, if you took something out of a genius's brain and then gave it a million different iterations until it finally reached final God form, that would be Breath of the Wild. I would think that Breath of the Wild, I thought, was a true masterpiece. And then Tears of the Kingdom came and like stepped that up. And those worlds are just so incredibly expansive and amazing. And yes, like I said, you don't have time for the full. But let's see, were there any other questions in there?
No.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and we're a little over time, but let's go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can find your work between now and Multiverse. First off, is everybody going to Multiverse?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Making sure. All right. So where can people find you between now and then? And hopefully they can hunt you down there. And we'll go right down the line. Tony?
You can always find me at tonyserecchia.com. I will be at StokerCon next month for Horror Writers Association, and then my next convention after that will be DragonCon in Atlanta.
Okay, Tiffany?
You can always find me on outsiderpublishingcompany.com. And next week I will be at Con Carolinas.
Kevin?
Yeah, just looking it up here. Okay, so I'm on it's kevinpetway.com. And that's got both my books and the Expanded Universe books on there. And so let's see, then we've got Ancient City Con in St. Augustine, Multiverse, Coast Con in Gulfport, and that is not a convention. So yeah, that's that's me.
All right, and Joe?
Well, you can always find me here at Go Indie Now. And then I will be at Con Carolinas next weekend as well, and then Dragon Con and Multiverse. That's my con list for the year.
All right. And you can find me at sarahjsover.com on pretty much, well, no, actually not all the platforms anymore. On Facebook as Sarah J. Sover, TikTok and Instagram, kind of, sort of. I'll be at Con Carolinas. I'll be at Congregate, Dragon Con, and then, of course, Multiverse. I just want to say thank you to Joe and Go Indie Now. Check out all of his reviews that he does on. He does an amazing job supporting indie authors, publishers, movies, obviously. So go check that out, and definitely come to Multiverse because it really is an unparalleled experience. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.